my channel. Today we're going to be dealing with the aftermath of a freak early frost or early freeze in our area. Living in Georgia in Zone 7B, we typically don't get our first frost until mid to late November. This year we got it mid-October, so that's a full 4 to 6 weeks early, which meant that I was not prepared and had just a couple of days to be prepared. This video goes over what I did to be prepared and then the aftermath of the garden. What I did was to get the trees in the greenhouse, and you'll see that. I also went through a big harvest and harvest anything that could possibly freeze on the plants that I know would not survive, because we had almost 5 days of below freezing temperatures, and of those days 3 days were less than 30. And for those of you who don't know, we rarely get in the 20s in the winter time, so that was pretty significant for us. I'm about halfway through with the trees. As you can see, I have some of the citrus in and my mango tree. I need to still do another citrus, and I'm debating if I should bring the pomegranates in and plant them in the winter, since we don't ever have freezing ground, just because I've got so much to do. mouse here in the garden today. Do you see him? I need him to move on. I'm not going to hurt him, but I am looking to work right where he is hanging out. There he is. Part of what I'm going to also do today is I am going to be adding trellises to two of the raised beds in the garden. Now, part of what I am trying to do is have as much vertical space to grow in the garden as possible. The reason I'm doing this is because the more vertical you grow, the more you can grow. And although my garden is fairly large and I have a number of beds, I still like to be able to add things into a bed that I typically wouldn't. Because they may need trellising, and so that's what I'm doing. I have 3 more beds that I'm going to add trellises for. So basically my plan is to have a trellis on all of my non-circular beds so that I can swap out growing different things, whether it's beans, peas, tomatoes from year to year, because there's already an established vertical space. Now for these particular trellises, I used zip ties, a half of a hog panel, and 2 T-posts. Now the hog panel is about $22, and for each one then it's $11. We have an abundance of T-posts here because my husband has always used them to trellis our raspberries and blackberries. So we have several. I didn't have to buy those. So each of the trellises here cost me $11 because I already had the zip ties from another project. But the zip ties are less than $5 a package. The T-posts, I think they're like $6 or $7 each. So less than $30, I have a permanent trellis, and unless they rot, they are going to be in the garden for a long time. Now I have cattle panel arches, cattle panel trellises, hog panel trellises, and obelisks and so forth in the garden because I do highly believe in growing vertically whenever possible. So without further ado, I don't know if you've ever heard of a hoseling hose. This is what this is. They were gracious enough to send us two to use in different parts of our yard, next to where his nursery is, and in our vegetable garden where he also works, so that it wouldn't be a trip hazard. Because, I used to have a big long hose in here and it was curled, and then it was such a pain to coil it back up when I was done that I would frequently just leave it. And then I realized, okay, this is becoming hazardous for him. What I used to do before he was injured, I can't do anymore. And they were able to send us two, and it's made such a huge difference. He feels good because he can use them and water his things. Now I'm giving them some garden tone. Should have done that already, but alas, sometimes we just don't do things in exactly the right sequence, and it's still okay because. Thank you so much for joining me today as I got ready for the frost and cleaned up after. Also, completing a few garden chores. I am always busy in the garden, y'all, especially since my husband's injuries, where most of the chores fall on me. So, got to keep going in order to get it all done. As always, if you've enjoyed this content, please consider subscribing. Happy gardening.